Tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about athletics. The community colleges that do a good job at increasing graduations, transfers, often do so because student success permeates throughout the institution. So tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about our athletics program. I'm very proud of our student athletes, but the reality is we have some work to do when it comes to our athletics program. One of the things that Karen and I had an opportunity to do about 9 months ago was to hire a new athletic director. And one of the things that we talked about is the importance of students being successful both in the classroom and on the field of competition. And I do know that some of our board members remember a time when our CLC athletic program was something that was a source of pride in the community. For 10 years in a row, between 1990 and 2000, College of Lake County won the All-Sport Conference Trophy, which recognizes colleges for outstanding performance across all of their sports. Unfortunately, we have not won it since. In addition, we routinely have the fewest students on our all-academic team. So we have some work to do. About 6 months ago, we had the opportunity to hire Nic Scandrett, our new athletic director. And one of the first conversations we had was how are we going to make sure that our students are competing both in the classroom and on the field. And Nic has done a great job in the first 6 months. I cannot be more proud of the work that he's done. So tonight, Nic is going to go over some of the new initiatives within our athletics program. He's also brought a couple of our student athletes that are here tonight as well. We'll introduce them later. But I'm going to turn it over to Nic to provide some guidance.
Thank you, Dr. Haney, and thank you to the board for the opportunity to speak to you all. As Dr. Haney kind of alluded to, we really hit the ground running about 6 months ago, and I think we've made a lot of progress and have a lot of good things to report to you tonight. I got a lot of information, so I'm just going to push right through it. But first, we'll start off just giving you a little bit of background on our athletics program. We compete in the National Junior College Athletic Association, and we're also one of 8 members in the Illinois Skyway Intercollegiate Conference. We compete in 12 scholarship sports, 6 men, 6 women, as you can see there, for a total yearly, give or take, around 150 student athletes, many of which, by the way, are first-time, full-time students, which is obviously one of the big metrics we're worried about. Now, when we first started diving deep into this, we looked at the data, and this is a snapshot of the 2013-14 academic year of how our student athletes compared in terms of GPA to the college, all college level students on campus. As you can see, as you can see, our student athletes, both semester and cumulative GPAs, are averaging lower than the general student bodies. So 2.4 compared to 2.7 semester and 2.6 to 2.8. So obviously it's really concerning to me because my previous experiences, it's pretty common that student athletes out-achieve the rest of the students at other colleges with athletics. The reason being is you have that leverage of participation in athletics to entice them to achieve at a higher level. So that's a concern. So one big goal we made, very simple, is for our athletes to achieve at a higher level than the conventional student on campus, both GPA-wise and in completion and transfer rates. So with this goal in mind, we put together 6 big strategies of how we're going to deal with this to achieve student-athlete success. Number 1 being exercise the leverage of athletics participation, enhance the tracking of academic performance and class attendance, identify higher-risk students, proactively connect students with resources, inform the student-athletes, and how we can reform our recruiting strategies. So starting with the first one, leveraging athletics participation. How can we do that? Well, number 1, we don't have a student-athlete handbook right now, which is really unheard of. So we're working hard to get one in place for next fall. It's really going to outline in writing what the policies or what the expectations of our student-athletes are. So that's got to be number 1 before we can leverage anything. Number 2 is we're going to use it to help our student-athletes enroll in a degree program that's actually progressing towards a degree and making sure they're enough credit hours to actually complete in 2 years. Right now, we have students that are enrolling classes just enough to be eligible to play, which is obviously concerning when we're talking about completion. Just this spring, we've started a study zone requirement where any student athletes below a 2.8 GPA must partake in at least 3 hours of our CLC study zone program on campus, which has been a very positive thing for us so far, and it's going to be even better next year when we can start first day in the fall. And then obviously any athletes that fall short of expectations are going to be withheld from competition. As far as tracking performance and attendance, it's a very time-intensive job from previous experience. Currently, our staff structure has primarily classified staff members, and we don't really have the capability in place or the manpower, if you will, to do an adequate job of what we would like to do in terms of monitoring and tracking student-athlete performance and kind of coordinating those efforts. So we're really looking at how can we restructure our staff in a way that's more conducive to student success. And we're also valuing the philosophy of hiring faculty or staff members as coaches, if they're qualified, because it's invaluable for student success to have people on campus full-time because they have daily contact with those students. We have a great partnership with the CAS program on campus where we have a student athlete will show up on an alert in a developmental course that they're struggling with. We'll get that early alert, and we've been helping the CAS people initiate contact, get them in touch with the academic coach, and we've been able to intervene in a couple of cases like that, so it's been fantastic. And open communication lines with faculty members. We're encouraging them to contact me anytime if they have issues with students. And we're even, next fall in the student faculty staff orientation week, we're proposing a workshop where we can have an open forum and talk about how we can collaborate together to create the culture that we want to create. Moving on to number 3 is identifying high-risk students. It's pretty self-explanatory. We've identified some students that are typically at a higher risk in terms of athletes. And with that information, goes on to number 4 is how do we proactively provide those at-risk students with the resources we have on campus, as we kind of alluded to before. We have a lot of great resources and how we can connect them to that. Number 5, informing our student athletes. Now, some of our student athletes plead ignorance when we run into issues with eligibility or not completing or any of those types of academic related things. And honestly, I can't blame them because we have not had a student athlete orientation program in place. We're working on building a comprehensive, robust orientation that's a requirement to participate in athletics. And it's going to cover the athlete's handbook, the resources available, requirements to maintain eligibility, and even the requirements to transfer on, because ultimately we want our athletes to transfer on and keep competing and studying, and there are higher requirements to do that, and our athletes need to be aware of those. And then we're really proud of the CLCLancers.com, a new CLC Athletics website that we just launched within the last couple of months. It's kind of been the first part of our rebranding. We're working with PR to revamp our logo and adopt the new colors within the CLC branding, and we came up with our new athletics website. This has been phenomenal for us, not only from an exposure and recruiting standpoint, but also disseminating information to our athletes. Our handbook and study zone calendars and all those types of things, central place on there they can find. So it's been a fantastic thing for us. I encourage you to check it out. Moving on to recruiting. We want to sell these success initiatives that we're doing as why you should come to CLC, not as a hindrance. And it's got to be a mentality of our coaches that we need to instill them, that we're not just going to bring you here and throw you to the wolves, so to speak. We're going to see you through, both athletically and academically, so you got the support you need. We're working really hard to build relationships with the local high schools to peak our recruiting efforts. I've had multiple speaking engagements at the high schools. I've attended AD meetings, built relationships that way. We're hosting an athletics open house at our place in the Physical Education Center on April 9th. We've sent out invites out to all of our high school coaches, athletic directors, student athletes, parents, media, everybody, just to come check us out, see what we're about, and give us an opportunity to say why they should consider CLC. And then Lake County Hall of Fame, we're kind of the central hub for that, which obviously brings exposure to us. Probably the most important thing with recruiting is using our scholarships as a tool, our athletic scholarships as a tool to recruit more college-ready students. And I think the more of those you can have on your rosters, the more they're going to bring everybody else up, and the better off you're going to be team success academically wise. So, other action projects. The Skyway Conference Athletic Directors came together. Most everybody has student-athlete success coordinators on their campus, and they decided to bring everybody together to meet regularly and talk about best practices and ideas and topics relating to student-athlete academic success. So I will be representing CLC at those. We're looking in the fall to start a student-athlete advisory committee. It's very popular on four-year campuses especially, where you get a captain from each sport. They meet with myself and our staff members regularly and participate in any policy and discussions like that, so athletes have a voice. And then we've really worked hard to revamp our eligibility process to make sure we are utmost compliant and it's as painless as possible for our athletes, as I know we've had issues with that in the past. Lastly, we've got a lot of great things going on. We got a lot of momentum. I'm very happy with how the last 6-7 months have gone, but we do have some inherent challenges that we deal with every day. Number one, our facilities are outdated along with our equipment. From a functionality standpoint, they're lacking. From an aesthetic standpoint, they're lacking. And they don't necessarily represent the image, I think, that we want CLC to have. So that's something we deal with every day. Limited scholarship funds. With the tuition increase next year, CLC Athletics will be at the bottom of our conference and in our region that we compete in athletic scholarships we were able to award to student athletes. So it's obviously a big competitive disadvantage. We have some of the lowest coaching salaries, and all of our coaches are part-time staff, faculty members right now, which is really tough for retention purposes, and also just like attracting a great applicant pool, if you will, when we have open positions. And as we said before, full-time staffers just really help with the academic side of things too. Our operational budget's been stagnant as we looked in the past. However, we have been able to look through, dive deep into the budgets in January and find a lot of ways to be creative and reallocate funds so we can have more of that going to the benefit of the student athlete versus overhead and departmental costs. So we're in a lot better place than we were, but we still have some unmet needs. And then, as we said, our staff right now isn't conducive to giving the oversight and tracking of academic performance like